One of my husband's friends turned into a drunken racist at our barbecue. I never imagined a casual backyard barbecue would turn into a nightmare, but that's exactly what happened when my husband's childhood friend Mary showed up drunk and started hurling racist nonsense about my Romanian heritage. We'd invited a small group of friends over for burgers and cold drinks, thinking it'd be a laid-back evening. Mary was always one of the guys, tagging along on fishing trips and poker nights, so I didn't give a second thought to her coming over. Everything was going smoothly until I tripped over a loose carpet and spilled red wine all over her jeans, totally accidental, but I felt horrible the moment it happened. I apologized right away and offered to help clean it up, but instead of accepting my hand, she lost it. Mary started ranting that I was some kind of witch, accused me of poisoning my husband, and even suggested I was a gypsy immigrant out to ruin their lives, racist garbage I'd never heard from her before. Her words cut deep, and I felt tears well up as I stammered apologies. When she refused to calm down, I made the tough call to show her the door and told her she was no longer welcome in our home. It wasn't something I did lightly, but I couldn't stand by while she insulted me and my family. My husband backed me up, saying he'd talk to Mary once she sobered up. He also pointed out that maybe I was too sensitive, but he understood why I set a boundary. Even though she later gave a half-hearted apology, I'm still not okay with what she said or did. So here I am, wondering if I overreacted by kicking her out. Was I wrong to stand up for myself, or was I right to refuse to tolerate blatant racism under my own roof? Sometimes, people show you exactly who they are when they've had one too many drinks. But when it's racism that comes pouring out, there's no coming back from that. Now, imagine acing a Zoom interview, only for the candidate's mom to call you up, demanding details. Yeah, this next story is wild. You won't believe what this interviewer's mom demanded from me after a Zoom call. I was helping out a college student with his internship interview. He'd reached out between his freshman and sophomore years. We did the interview over Zoom. About a minute in, his mom popped onto the call to sing her son's praises, talking up his work ethic like he was already hired. I thought it was a bit odd, but I stayed polite and let her finish before I continued. After the interview wrapped up quickly, she jumped back in to answer questions, but she didn't seem prepared and ended the meeting sooner than I expected. I figured that was that. A few days later I got an email from her. Her son still hadn't received any acceptance or rejection, and she wanted to know exactly how he'd performed. I felt sorry for the kid. Back when I was a teenager, I would have appreciated honest feedback. So I replied that I wasn't free to share detailed interview notes. I suggested that if her son wanted feedback, he should follow up himself so he could learn how to advocate for himself in the hiring process. I even added that in my experience, hiring managers appreciate when candidates reach out directly, as it shows initiative. Apparently that wasn't enough. She called me on the phone, furious, demanding I send her every detail of his performance as if he weren't capable of speaking for himself. I explained again that it would be better and more professional for him to ask and that I'd happily offer tips if he reached out. But she kept berating me, cussing me out until I finally had to hang up. I'm left wondering if I handled this the right way. Was I truly the bad one here for protecting the student's privacy and encouraging him to follow up himself? Helicopter parenting is one thing, but showing up for your kid's interview? That's a whole new level of overbearing. Next, we move from overprotective parents to boundary-breaking behavior. When someone takes things way too far, sometimes you have no choice but to put your foot down. She tried to sit in his lap, and I lost it. I've been dating my boyfriend for 2 years after we met in a grief support group, and everything's been smooth. Our kids even get along well. My 19-year-old daughter, Stella, seems to adore him. She's made him breakfast, brought him drinks during movie nights, and even got him a massage chair for his back problems, which honestly rubbed me the wrong way since I'm a licensed masseur. Last night, while we were watching a film, Stella came back with my boyfriend's beer and casually tried to settle in his lap. He immediately pushed her away and told her that was way out of line, which led to a tense standoff. I followed him upstairs to talk, and he insisted Stella needed to find somewhere else to stay, but I pointed out how ridiculous that sounded. I suggested maybe if he ditched his funeral director suits outside work, she wouldn't be so infatuated, but he thought I was being absurd. We went to bed angry, and this morning he left to cool off, texting that he was in a McDonald's parking lot. Now I'm pacing the house, trying to figure out whether I overstepped or if I was just protecting boundaries. I know some might say I should have backed off and let them sort it out, but in my book, sitting on your partner's lap like that crosses a line, especially when you're still living under my roof. Yet I also see how close Stella and he have grown, and part of me wonders if I'm making too big a deal out of it. So here I am, replaying every moment and asking myself, did I handle this the right way, or am I the one who's gone too far? Some lines just shouldn't be crossed, and when they are, the fallout is messy and unforgettable. Now, we switch gears to a seemingly harmless hair decision that spiraled into one of the biggest morning meltdowns you've ever heard of. Get ready for this one. Why purple hair sparked the biggest morning meltdown. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and my 25-year-old girlfriend, Lucy, is always switching up her look. One day she's in a flowy skirt and blouse, the next she's rocking shorts and a crop top. I've always thought she's stunning, but her ever-changing style sometimes draws a lot of attention and even unwanted advances because people assume she's single. A while back, she mentioned wanting to try highlights using an at-home kit her sister had, but I managed to talk her out of it, and we both forgot about it for months. Then, out of the blue, she told me she'd been thinking about going for dark purple streaks, saying she could always dye it back to brown if she didn't like it. I admitted I preferred her natural color and worried the bleach needed might damage her hair, but I tried to keep it casual rather than bossy. She shrugged off my concerns, and we went to bed without another word, at least that's what I thought. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen to find Lucy whipping up breakfast with rich purple highlights framing her face. I couldn't help blurting out that I was surprised she went ahead after I'd warned it might not suit her or could weaken her strands. She looked at me and said she'd changed her mind and that what really mattered was who she was on the inside, not her hair color. Trying to explain myself, I told her I just wanted her to give me a heads up if she was going to do something that could harm her hair. In hindsight, my wording was clumsy, and she got defensive, accusing me of trying to control her choices like last time. While we were hashing it out, her pancakes burned, and by the time we noticed, the kitchen was a mess and food had to be tossed. Frustrated and tired, I snapped that none of this would have happened if she'd listened and stopped acting like a kid. That set her off even more. She told me I should fend for myself and quit expecting her to cater to my every whim. I argued back that I'm fully capable of cooking and cleaning, but since she enjoys making breakfast, I saw no reason to upset the routine. Thinking the argument was over, I grabbed my stuff to tidy up our bedroom, only to hear her say she was done with me and heading out to crash at a friend's place. It's been a few days now, and I can't decide if I went too far or if her reaction was blown completely out of proportion. So, Reddit, was I in the wrong for voicing my concerns, or did she overreact to purple hair? Sometimes, a change in appearance is more than just a style choice, it's a statement. But not everyone's ready for that kind of statement. Next up, we've got a story where staying hidden could mean millions, but at what cost? This one dives deep into family, money, and keeping secrets. I told my niece to hide her identity for millions. You won't believe my reason. I'm a 41-year-old guy, and just the other day my 16-year-old niece confided in me that she's a lesbian. I immediately let her know I'd always be there for her, just like any supportive uncle would. Then she dropped the bomb that she planned to come out to everyone this week, and I felt my stomach knot up. I urged her to wait until after our parents, her grandparents, had passed on, to avoid rocking the boat too soon. See, my dad has built a fortune worth tens of millions that he intends to leave to our family once he's gone. Unfortunately, he's also made it absolutely clear that any gay relative will be written out of his will, with their share sent off to charity instead. With my mother battling stage 4 cancer and my dad in declining health, I told my niece that by staying discreet for just a year or two, she could protect that life-changing inheritance. If she comes out now, she stands to lose roughly $7 million, money that could set her up comfortably for decades. Although she felt a pang of sadness, she also admitted that holding off a little longer could make all the difference in her future. My wife thinks I've crossed the line, accusing me of asking my niece to hide who she really is just to appease old bigots, and she's not wrong. Still, in my mind, sacrificing a short time in the closet is a small price to pay for financial security that could last her entire life. I've even gone through my father's will myself and know exactly how the estate is divided. Unless he changes his mind, those $7 million are hers, provided she stays silent for now. Imagine having to choose between being yourself and inheriting a fortune. For some, the cost of honesty is far higher than you'd think. Now, we switch gears from secrets to sandwiches. What would you do if you found out your partner was selling your homemade lunches behind your back? This one's a doozy. He sold my homemade sandwiches? My shocking response. I'd come home one evening to my wife's face dropping when I mentioned her sandwiches. Turns out she'd been quietly selling every single one I made for him at work. I'm 34 and she's 39, he works in advertising, and we've been squeezing pennies together so we can afford a new apartment. Normally, he'd grab fast food every day, and it was burning through about $300 a month, roughly $20 a day, according to my quick math. To cut costs and eat healthier, I offered to pack him sandwiches each morning, a simple swap to free up money for rent. At first, everything seemed great. He barely touched most of them but kept asking for extras because he said he was still hungry. Then yesterday he strolled in with a coworker, and over dinner his friend raved about how delicious my sandwiches were until he added that they were pricey. I blinked in surprise when my husband admitted he'd been selling my homemade lunches to colleagues, then buying his own meals out. Shocked and hurt, I told him I wouldn't make another sandwich if he was just flipping them for a profit so he could eat fast food on our dime. He snapped back, calling me dramatic and accusing me of overreacting, then demanded I apologize for daring to refuse him. Honestly, I don't mind him making a little extra cash on the side, but it's unfair for him to pocket all the earnings without sharing a cut. Hiding it from me and gaslighting me into feeling guilty showed he knew deep down he was in the wrong. So here I am, no more sandwiches unless he's up front and we split the profit. Am I bad for drawing the line after catching him selling what I lovingly prepared? There's nothing like finding out someone's turning your kindness into profit. Sometimes, the real betrayal is what's hidden in plain sight. Now imagine drawing a line in the sand with your own daughter over something as deep as language. This next story? It's about heritage, family pride, and the price of sticking to your roots. I gave my daughter an ultimatum. And she stormed out. I asked Reddit if I was the bad for ordering my daughter to speak French or hit the road in my own home. My grandparents fled France at the outbreak of World War II, spent years in hiding, and then rebuilt their lives from scratch in America, so our French heritage means the world to me. French is the language I use at home, and I've always made sure my 4 kids learn and speak it fluently. As a single dad, I've got 2 teenagers still living with me, and my 2 eldest daughters have been staying here throughout this whole situation. Everything was fine until my oldest daughter brought her boyfriend over, and suddenly she refuses to speak French under my roof. Whenever I address her in French, she answers me in English without a second thought. When I asked why she'd switched languages, she explained she didn't want to make her boyfriend feel left out while the rest of us chattered away en français. That's when I drew my line in the sand. You can keep speaking French here, or you're free to pack up and go. Now she's given me the silent treatment, won't talk to me in any language, and my other kids think I was overly harsh. So here I am, wondering if I crossed the line. What do you think, Reddit? Sometimes, holding on to tradition means letting go of comfort. But when it's your own daughter, that choice isn't so simple. Now, from family tensions to pure chaos, imagine being caught in the bathroom during your partner's biggest fear. This one's awkward, messy, and downright hilarious. I pooped while my girlfriend panicked over spiders. Did I mess up? I'd been battling constipation for days and finally felt nature call first thing in the morning, so I dashed off to the bathroom as fast as I could. Just as I settled in, I heard my girlfriend shrieking from the living room because 2 surprisingly large spiders had made themselves at home near the couch. I yelled back that I'd handle the creepy crawlies as soon as I was finished, then shut the door and got down to business. Midway through what turned out to be a 15-minute ordeal, she pounded on the door in tears, convinced the spiders were crawling closer to her. I told her to lock herself in our bedroom for a few more minutes until I was done, since I couldn't pause my situation halfway. When I emerged, I carefully scooped up those arachnids and deposited them on our balcony, thinking I'd solved the problem. I went to reassure her, but she'd disappeared, so I hunted the whole apartment until I finally called her phone and heard nothing but anger over how useless I'd been. Apparently, she packed an overnight bag and stormed off to her parents' house instead of waiting for me to finish. Even after I apologized, she and her mom blasted me for being immature and neglectful while she was genuinely terrified. I can't shake the feeling that her reaction was way over the top. Sure, spiders freak her out, but I had a real emergency, too. Am I the bad for tending to my own business first and then putting the spiders outside, or should I have dropped everything to calm her down? When nature calls, sometimes you just have to answer, even if it means risking a full-on spider meltdown. I carried 6 babies for my brother-in-law, now they want round 3? I've already got 5 kids with my wife. Our first little one died right after birth because of a rare mutation, and then we welcomed 4 more healthy babies into our home. When my brother-in-law and his wife asked me to carry their child, I agreed, hoping I could help them grow their family. That first attempt ended in miscarriage, but I said yes to a second try anyway, even though I was scared. Sadly, the second pregnancy resulted in a stillbirth, and I was left heartbroken all over again. Now they're pressuring me to go for a 3rd round, but I'm done with this marathon of loss and recovery. I physically carried 6 babies at this point, and mentally I'm tapped out. My body has taken on more than anyone should have to endure. After our 4th and 5th kids, I even had my tubes tied, and I'm already planning a hysterectomy once it's safe to do so. My doctor warned me that future pregnancies would put me at serious risk for bladder problems and uterine prolapse. I'm ready to hang up my cape and focus on the family I already have. I've been a voluntary broodmare long enough. My wife is by my side, worried about my health and backing my decision, but she's never been great at pushing back against her family's demands. Every day I get calls and tears from my sister-in-law begging me to reconsider, sometimes with vague hints at legal action if I refuse. I feel awful that the best I could offer them was a tiny gravestone after that stillbirth, but that truly was the end of the line for me. I refuse to risk my life and well-being again when I've already given everything I have. I have my own kids to look after. So am I the bad one for saying no to a 3rd surrogacy? Absolutely not. My body, my choice, and I'll never apologize for choosing my health first. There's a limit to what you can give even for family. And sometimes, saying no more is the bravest choice of all. Finally, we wrap up with a story that shows even the smallest difference can spark the biggest arguments. When 2 twins find out one's been getting paid more, the reaction is priceless. You won't believe why I pay one twin $5 more a week. I'm a 43-year-old father of 4, my oldest 2 are 15-year-old twin boys, and I also have daughters ages 11 and 8. All of my kids pitch in around the house, following a chore chart that scales responsibilities with age. Every week the boys swap tasks among themselves, since they legitimately handle the heaviest workload. For a long time we've given the twins $15 each per week, while our 10-year-old gets $10 and our youngest daughter earns $2, mostly as a fun gesture. As the girls grow older, we plan to bump up their allowances so it stays in line with their extra chores and maturity. But here's the twist, one of my twins, let's call him it, naturally steps up as the peacemaker, mediating sister-brother squabbles and calmly leading in tougher moments. I has never complained when he unofficially took on extra emotional work to help mom and me keep everything running smoothly. His brother, B, tends to be more quiet and reserved, which is totally fine, but it means A ends up doing more of the conflict resolution that keeps our household sane. So, for the past year, my wife and I have quietly added an extra $5 to A's weekly deposit, bringing him to $20 while B still gets $15. Both boys have debit cards, we set them up at 13, so they never see cash exchanging hands, just the balance updates in their accounts. I always knew about his higher allowance, but last week B discovered the discrepancy while shopping online for video games. B blew up when he realized it could afford things he couldn't, even though they've been doing the same official chores. Since I hadn't spent much of his extra money, his savings had piled up, prompting B to question why he wasn't getting the same bonus. Now B is furious, insisting it's unfair that they're doing equal work but not earning equal pay. We're at a loss how to show him that A's behind-the-scenes emotional support really counts, and that rewarding that effort isn't favoritism but acknowledgement of all the unspoken work he does.